The following is brought to you by Total Seal Piston Rings, the leader in ring seal technology. TotalSeal.com. Hey everybody, welcome back to another edition of Hidden Horsepower, presented by Total Seal Piston Rings. My name is Joe Castello, and we have got another great episode for you. Before we get started, before we bring on the co-host, I want to encourage everybody to click subscribe and write a review. Rate and review the podcast algorithm. It is so complicated, but if you rate and review Hidden Horsepower, it can only mean good things for the podcast and more people being able to hear all the great legends of engine building that we've got on this show. Like, for instance, he is the Director of Technical Sales at Total Seal Piston Rings. He joins me now, Mr. Keith Jones. What's up, Keith?
Hey, everybody. It's another sunny day out here in the desert, enjoying some, cool, brisk 109 temperatures. We're just having fun out here in the dirt, staying busy, and always trying to make things better.
Sounds so cool and relaxing. 109, no big deal. Yes, you desert dwellers. Here in sunny South Florida, it is 100% humidity, so we have that going for us. Now, I'm super excited about our guest, Charlie Garrett. This guy has run pro stock. This guy has won championships in sprint cars. He's kind of another hands in many pots when it comes to automotive and auto racing. I am super excited. What about you?
Oh, absolutely. Charlie is just one of the sweetest, dearest customers, friend, beyond, I hate even using the word customer, friends that I have, because he's such a gentleman, such a great guy, such a wealth of knowledge. He's a legend in this industry. Anybody that knows, just you say Charlie Garrett's name and they know what you got. You got the best of the best.
And that is so exciting, and that is what Hidden Horsepower is all about. So without further ado, let's bring him on from Pennsylvania, Mr. Charlie Garrett. Charlie, welcome to Hidden Horsepower. How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you. And again, thank you for inviting me.
I think it is great. And Keith was like, what about Charlie Garrett? And I did man, this guy is a legend. And you are. I love the fact that you started off in drag racing. Let's take it back to the very beginning, though, Charlie. Cars, engines. How did you know that was your thing?
Well, just as I got out of high school, I just had a passion for racing. And my parents never wanted me to race. They really didn't. And I ran my first drag race at Lincoln Speedway, which is, people think that's a joke. That's where we raced, at Lincoln Speedway in the dirt. They drag race on the home stretch. And anyhow, I won a trophy. It was with a Ford, so they were pretty easy to hook up. Fords didn't have much power compared to Chevy. But anyhow, I won a trophy. I took it home, sat it on the kitchen table. My parents come down the next morning, and when they seen that, they just really laid me out about that. You're not racing. I said, I want to race. I'm going to race. And whatever reason, I just nobody in my family, none of my brothers ever had a desire for racing or had any passion for, no mechanical ability or nothing. They just didn't. But I don't know. It's just something that I wanted to do, and here I am still doing it. But I don't regret any of it. There's people that say to you, don't you regret the money you ever spent racing? I said, no. If you laid it on my workbench and said, there it is, but I'm going to remove your knowledge, your friends, your experiences, well, what would I do with the money? How much money do you need? No, I'm very lucky in that way to find something in my life that I like to do, because most people never find it.
Wow.
They just don't. They don't know what they're looking for.
Amazing. Well, it's so true, but also in that time, racing wasn't the industry it is now. That we were still dealing with, I'm thinking about movies, two-lane, blacktop, bad people race. It wasn't as legit as it is now.
No, absolutely not. But you look back over the years, it's amazing how it's developed. Sprint car racing in particular has just gotten so big. It's just getting bigger and bigger. And I think a lot of that's due to Dirt Vision, all this stuff that's on TV now with it. It's definitely brought in bigger races, bigger paying races. And here in central Pennsylvania, this is a big sprint car area. And obviously, I started out in drag racing that's what I really like the best. But all these guys have come in the shop around here with all the, so many tracks in my area here that they wanted you to do work in sprint car racing. And when York US 30 closed up, I don't know if you ever remember that, but probably not. But that was our home track, and it was an old airport, but a very, very good racetrack. But when that closed, drag racing kind of slowed up around here. And we got Maple Grove. Maple Grove's very close. But other than that, we don't have no tracks around here that you could go to that are very close. But sprint car racing around here has never died. It never will. I don't believe, not in my lifetime. It won't.
Keith, jump in with a question.
Oh, well, and absolutely, I remember York. That's like you say, in its time, legendary place, and everything Charlie just said. I mean, anybody that follows sprint car racing, the Pennsylvania Posse. I mean, these are the guys to beat. You want to challenge yourself. We have local guys here in Phoenix that, their whole thing all year long is to get enough money and enough engines together to go run with the Posse. It's going to show you what you're made out of. And there is no tougher sprint car area there, and I certainly understand why Charlie does sprint car engines, because you're right in the middle of all of it. But as I like to say, the best round track engine guys are drag race guys, and Charlie's just another proof of that statement.
Right now we're in the middle of our speed week here. I don't know if you know that or not. Tonight's the halfway mark. We got 10 consecutive races in the PA Speedweek, and I'm pretty proud that my motors are leading the championship right now. We got 500 points. Anthony Macri, a young boy, well, he's 24 years old. He's won the first two of the Speedweek races. He's got the most wins in the country. He's got 14 sprint car wins, and he's a young kid that has just come along really good and getting better all the time. And that's why you work hard, to see your work represent you well. It isn't just all about money to me. I want to see my results. I want my work to speak for itself. And I think if more people did that, we'd have a better product on everything in this world.
Wow. Well, congratulations on that. You guys are halfway through. I wish you the best. That will be neat. And we're going to have to follow up on that one, Charlie. But I love the fact, though, I spend time working in the world of drag racing, and on Hidden Horsepower, we have spoken with many sprint car engine builders who did get their start in drag racing. And I want you to talk a little bit about that, the drag racing mentality brought to sprint car racing, in that doing everything perfect, right? Pro stock is where you spent a lot of time racing. I think you went down the track at over 200 miles an hour, and you have to look for everything. Like, everything matters. And now that happens in all of motorsports, sprint car racing included. Maybe once upon a time it didn't, but now it does. You tell me, though.
Obviously, drag racers were always ahead of their time as far as engine development compared to sprint cars, and that's how they end up coming to my shop, but it isn't, you brought up something there. It's never about one thing. It's never. It's to develop a combination. People think I'll buy this one thing and I'll have a good motor. No, you got to develop that combination. And when you develop that, then you work around that. But once you got that developed where it's proven on the racetrack, yes, we got dynos and we know what we're looking at, but you still got to see it on the racetrack and see the results. And once you develop that combination, you don't want to get too far from it. You want to still try things, but you don't want to forget what you got working for you, and some people want to try all this trick stuff. It's not about tricks. It's about detail every single thing, and put the efforts into it to make sure that everything you do. I'll give you an example as to hone a block. Everybody talks about these motors that we deal with. In my opinion, are the hardest motors to seal of any form of racing. Maybe not in top fuel, but any normally aspirated motor. These are difficult because they're so thin. We got everything so light. The blocks, they're aluminum blocks. Everything moves around. A steel block, if you can't seal a steel block, you're not very intelligent. That's all I can say. But aluminum blocks are a different beast. And if you watch these sprint car guys, you watch these races, you always see these cars pushing smoke out their, or oil out their some tanks. They're creating crankcase pressure, and they don't have it figured out, and I do have that part figured out. I can tell you that, and it wasn't easy. And Keith at Total Seal was a big part of that. Keith as Keith will tell you, people, when they came out with a .9 millimeter ring, they couldn't make them work. Well, I didn't have no trouble making them work. It ain't the ring; it's everything. How good's your piston groove? How are you honing your block? How are you cleaning your block? How are you setting your ring gaps? There's so much detail involved in sealing a block. What are you assembling it with? The piston plays a big part in it, but a ring can't do its job if you don't do the rest of the job, and that's detail, everything that's involved in sealing that block. It's not easy. It is not easy.
Oh, absolutely, and Charlie's 100% correct. I mean, Charlie, we talk about the .9. Heck, there was a time Charlie ran all the .8s. Charlie has been the guy that, if we've got a crazy idea, something we want to try, I'll talk it over with Charlie. And if Charlie thinks hey, I'm willing to try that, we get him the parts. And if there's a person out there that's going to make this work, it is Charlie, because as he said, he is so attention to detail oriented. It's not just about that part. It's as Charlie said, it's like a lock and a key. Everything's got to be right. The cylinder's got to be right. The piston's got to be right. The bore finishes. It all has to be right. And that is the thing that, Charlie, beyond reproach, is the master of, is that attention to detail. He's not rushing. He's not trying to get 50 engines a week out. He's working on that engine, and he's going to follow that engine until it's done and it's perfect. And that's why he does the things he does and the way his cars run, the way his cars run. He gets, longevity, life out of an engine that very few get, and it's just because everything is done so right. And at the same time, Charlie, he works with good people. The people that he builds for, the teams that he works with. Here's the maintenance. Here's how you're going to do it. You're going to clean it. You're going to take care of it like this. You don't just take it, run it, and throw it in the car, and then expect, to take the car and throw it in the trailer and expect it to come out next week and run perfect. Like he said, it's a system. You design a program, and that's Charlie. That's, you got a program and you got to stick to it.
I'd like to say one thing here about how I got started in drag racing. That I never had anybody to teach me. I never had no teacher. I had to learn on my own. I'm still learning. I don't know everything. But I bought a book. I don't know how old you are, Joe, but I bought a book in 1958 put out by Ed Iskandarian called Valve Timing for Maximum Output. I paid $1 for that book. I got it here on my desk right now looking at it. And I'm telling you, it's the best book I ever bought. There's still information in that book today that holds true. I mean, Ed Iskandarian, I put there, in the late 50s, mid 60s, early 60s, Ed Iskandarian, in my opinion, was a very, very smart person. And this book proves it. And I learned so much out of that book. And I still rely on looking at that book once in a while for some common sense. And, but anyhow, that got me started in drag racing, just reading that book. And of course, I read Bill Jenkins' books. I read every book I could get my hand on, but I never really had anybody to show me the ins and outs and the easier way to do this. I mean, it's a slow process learning yourself, but it works. It works if you stick at it, and it's not all bad. But obviously, if I had a young guy come in here, I could teach him things if he's willing to work. That would make it a lot easier for him to go down the path that I've traveled. But I just very fortunate that I got something in my life that I love to do. I sure wouldn't be doing it at my age. I don't know what retirement is. I'm not interested in retirement. To me, that's just giving up life. That's the way I look at it.
Well, you found something you love to do. Why would you retire from that, ever?
Yeah, exactly. It isn't work to me. Well, there's times it's frustrating, but everything in life can be frustrating. I think in the last year or so, the parts availability and stuff, it's been very difficult for a small shop because the bigger shops are buying up everything. As soon as something's released, they grab it. And I can't afford the inventory what a big shop could. But I do inventory more than I ever have because you have to. You can't get parts, and it makes it difficult. And quality control, man, I've had some experiences in the last year or so with valve problems and things because of lack of quality control. I don't have that trouble with Total Seal. I haven't had a trouble with parts from Total Seal. Maybe because Keith likes me, he takes care of me. I don't know. But you ask Keith how many times I ever had to call him with a problem. Not too many times. Not too many times. And I never complain your rings ain't working because they work. I don't have no problem. You know?
Keith, is Charlie getting preferential treatment over there or what? What's up?
I try to treat everybody the same, and I try to treat them like they're my friend and my family. And again, as Charlie is, and I appreciate the kind words, Charlie. Yeah, very fortunately, we've had very, very few issues. Like Charlie said, I could probably count on one hand in the 20 plus years I've been dealing with Charlie, where we've had to, to fix something up and sort something out. But we do really try to, I shouldn't say try. We pride ourselves in trying to get as much out of here every single day as we can. It's, during this whole supply issue thing, I got to tell you, the hardest part of this thing is telling people, from my side that, I don't have that. It's going to be, 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month. In all the years I've worked, I've never had to say that. I've never had that. And fortunately, we're getting pretty caught back up right now, and that's not really any kind of an issue. But for a little while there, that really pained me to have to say that to somebody, because normally it's like, no problem, get it right out. Might be in the shop for a day or two. And for a while there, that wasn't the case. But we're kind of back up to speed now and going forward. But again, I do appreciate the kind sentiment from Charlie.
Well, I was going to tell Keith, we were talking about there was a couple of mistakes maybe in 20 years. I've always had a saying, and I'll say it to the day I die, the man that never made a mistake never did much. He must have laid in bed all his life. If you're willing to own up to a mistake, there's nothing wrong with that. Now, if you keep doing, Danny Jessel Battle Train, another good friend of mine that's helped me a lot down through my racing career, and in my opinion makes the best rocker arms and stuff in the business. Danny always tells me, he pays his help good, but there's no third time with him. If you make a mistake twice, there's not going to be a third time. And I kind of go along with that. That kind of tells me you really don't care about what you're doing. But a man never made any mistakes. He never did much in life. He couldn't have.
Yeah, that is good advice. And you're name checking like the icons of all motor racing in the first half of this episode. This is just amazing for me to listen to. Earlier, you asked about how old I am. I'm about to be 50 years old real soon. I don't tell everybody that, but you are 80 plus, and to hear your energy, Charlie, it is amazing the energy you have, the passion you have for what you're doing.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But like I said, find something in life you like to do, and it won't be. You want to go to work. You want to get up and go to work. And I don't expect the government to keep me or somebody to give me a program. I don't know. People talk about age. To me, like, I think there was a saying like, "How old would you know if you didn't know how old you were?" Or how old would you be if you didn't know how old you were? Rather, you look back and say, "Well, oh hell, I'm 81 or 82. I think I'll quit." I'm not doing it. I don't know if Keith ever told you, but I'm a big dog lover, and my dogs have kept me very active in life. I walked thousands and thousands of miles with my dog. Now, people don't believe that. Well, you figure it out. If you walk 2 miles a day with your dog, and you had dogs for 30 years, that ends up a good many miles,
Huh.
And it keeps me going. And to see my dogs, the worst day in the shop when I get home and walk my dog, it's a great day. It's just a great day because we humans can't live up to a dog in my outlook of life. I just there might be a few humans can, but the dog, their loyalty and their love is unconditional, and it's another thing I found in life that dogs are a lot of work, but they give a lot back too, and Keith will tell you that. That's for sure.
That is amazing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Keith, you're a dog guy too?
Oh, I love all animals. I could tell stories. Currently I don't have any dogs, but I do have, I'll call it 2, and it looks like now a third cat, because one of them's stray is adopted our house, and it seems like my wife can't stop feeding it. So I want to say I have 3 cats and a bird, but we've had everything from monkeys to, Bennett wallabies to, oh goodness gracious, all kinds of stuff. Like I say, exotic parrots, iguanas. We used to have a 6-foot-long green iguana, and love them all. They all need our help. They all need us to take care of them and to be there for them, through sickness and health, for better, for worse. They depend on us, and, we're there for them. So, yeah, we're real animal lovers.
Wow, that is great. And just since we're on the topic, of course, we'll get back to technology since we're talking dogs. I just got a text from my mother, and she just brought her little dog to the vet to, get snipped, right? And he's got the cone on him, and he looks like the saddest little guy you'd ever imagine, man. And so I'm just sharing that with you. Super sad little guy. Poor Frankie. But hey, it has to happen. So I want to know, Charlie, working with Keith, we talk about the engine builder out there, the fictitious engine builder that we know exists, who is unwilling to adopt new technology, who is maybe afraid or cautious. You talked about the combination. And when Keith comes in with 0.9, they're like, no, man, I don't want to try that. And they're still doing what they've always done because they're getting a decent result. They've got customers. You do not sound like that guy. As somebody who has been doing it for so long, talk a little bit about your adoption of new technology. Like, were you always wanting to find the next best thing? Was that something that you resisted at first? Just talk a little bit about that, because things are always changing, and clearly with Ring Seal, they've changed a lot for the better pretty recently.
Yeah, well, I'm not against trying anything as long as I think, I'll tell them, send it to me, and let me look at it, and maybe I'll try it. Depends if I've ever been down that road or not before, But again, getting back to that combination, you got to figure that out first, and then you work around it. And if Keith thinks he's got a better ring that will seal my motors better than what I'm sealing right now, I'd be willing to try it. These aluminum blocks are very difficult to hold vacuum, very difficult. And my motors will hold vacuum. And we're not running vacuum pumps. We're relying on the Johnson pump to do the work. Or the oil pump, rather, but the Johnson oil pump with 5 stages. But if you can't hold vacuum, you're going to get crankcase pressure, and that's a sign of lack of seal. My .9 millimeter ring, and I use it, Keith, has been so reliable to me. It just has been. I'm not saying there isn't something better out there, and yeah, I'm willing to look at things. I don't. If you're too stuck on your ways, that's not really good either. You can't just say I know everything and it can't go any further. You can't do that. Again, getting back to what I said, the word detail. Just paying attention to every single thing. Not a whole bunch of little details can add up to some results. But I never was a believer, though. When I drag raced, the only thing I ever found that my vendor told me was going to give me when we were running de-ordered, I ran comp eliminator for a lot of years. I went to Pro Stock in '83. For Joe Liberty, he swore if I used his clutches, he just brought them out, you're going to gain a tenth. I'm like, yeah, I've heard that story before. Well, believe me, it did. Believe me, it did. And then when we went to Pro Stock, we tried to keep running that clutches transmission, and everybody laughed at us and it didn't work because we didn't have the right clutch combination. Now they all run them, But the clutch technology changed so much, and now they all run clutches, Of course, the Lanco was a big thing. But anyhow, Joe Liberty, when I bought that Liberty clutches, we set the de-order record right away because we needed that tenth. And he said, you can't shift like a Liberty will shift, and he was right. Just things like that. There's technology that came into drag racing that has certainly changed that sport considerably. And as far as Pro Stock goes, Pro Stock, I got away from NHRA maybe. I don't know when I moved over to IHRA exactly, but I'm going to say 85, maybe 86, maybe a little later than that. I did win Darlington. In IHRA, we won the Winter Nationals at Darlington in 1994, and I retired from racing in 96 because it got to the point where if you couldn't do it full time and have major sponsors, you just can't do it. You just can't. And it was time to concentrate on my business full time, and I left drag racing, but had a lot of good years, and certainly regret none of them. That's for sure. But the technology end of it, of course, you see it so much in drag racing. I mean, you look at the top fuel cars and some of the things those guys have in those fuel systems today is just nothing short of incredible, and the power that they're making. I mean, and it never stops. I mean, look at the speed they're running at 1,000 foot today compared to what They just and they still got restrictions on them, but. I don't know what's the fastest they could ever run if we lifted all restrictions.
Oh, wow.
But drag racing is hard to say. It's just,
amazing. No, it is amazing.
It is. It really is. I mean, my driveway from my shop out to our main road, which is Route 94, that's about 1,000 feet. And I tell a lot of people, can you imagine something leaving my shop until they got to 94, they're running 330 miles an hour? It's pretty damn unbelievable. But they do.
They do. It's amazing. Keith, jump in with a question for Charlie.
Well, I was gonna comment. It's funny you said that about Top Fuel, Charlie, and the restrictions and what they do in the mile an hour. It's one of those things I've many times thought about. What if there was an outlaw Top Fuel class? 8th mile, and let them do what they want to do. How fast could it go?
I wouldn't know. I really wouldn't. It's just pretty damn fast right where it is. I can tell you. You ever stand behind one of those things, you really can appreciate how fast they are.
Since we're telling stories like that, this is, and I may have mentioned this once before one of the shows, but this has been a few years ago now. I was actually in Australia. I was in Willowbank, Australia, at the Australian Winter Nationals. ANDRA was the association at the time. I think it's changed. But I had the opportunity to go down on the starting line and literally stand about where the bell housing would be between two Top Fuel dragsters when they left the line. And keep in mind, at that time, they were still running, 1320. What was amazing to me, Charlie, is when the throttle opened and you saw the glow of the header go out, these consumed so much air into the hat, you can't not get pulled forward. It makes you take a step forward to balance yourself. It consumes so much air so fast. Anybody that's had that opportunity, check it out, because it's unbelievable. And I actually got to go down. There was 3 rounds of fuel, and I got to go down in between the cars every pass, and it did the same. No matter how hard I tried, it sucked me forward a good foot, 2 feet every time.
Wow, that's unbelievable.
Yeah, it just shows you how much air that thing is going through that thing.
Anybody that don't have an appreciation for the acceleration that those Top Fuel and funny cars have, they don't have much respect for speed or have any interest in speed, I should say, because it is incredible. It really is. It's just they're kind of a ticking time bomb, but they get down there a lot of times without troubles too. It's just hard to believe. Well, a funny car, I would never even consider driving. Top Fuel car in my day, yeah, I would have tried one. I don't like that motor in front of me or that fire. That I wouldn't like. I wouldn't like that.
Wow. That's where I spend my weekend, right? I work at the NHRA as one of their track announcers, and for the Nitro cars, I'm on the starting line where Keith described.
What do you do, Joe? I mean, with the NHRA, like if I watch the NHRA, which I watch them all, I mean, you were involved, like at Norwalk? Were you at Norwalk?
Yes, I was at Norwalk, and if you go back and you watch the Fox Sports 1 coverage and just kind of look in between the lanes, like in between the water boxes or right in front of or behind the battery that says FVP, it's like a fake battery there on display for marketing purposes. Right. I will be standing in the middle, kind of holding a microphone there, and my job is to just observe everything that is happening, and if something is happening, let's say one of the crew chiefs is making a late decision to go into the clutch can and adjust something, or somebody not start or whatever, I radio up to the tower like this is what's happening. But then after the run, let's say, in this case, this past weekend, Dean Antonelli, crew chief for Ron Capps, wanted to tell Cruz Pedregon's team that he was unhappy that Cruz had taken so long to stage. And he came right over, and I did an interview with him, and he said that was chicken shit, and it was a big thing, and it goes out over the microphone in the venue. We call it in venue, like for the people that are there at Norwalk, but also on NHRA.TV, the NHRA streaming show. And occasionally I also work for Fox Sports 1 on NHRA on Fox when somebody is sick or somebody is out or they can't make it to the race. But I'm an announcer and a reporter, so to hear you guys talk about how amazing it is to stand in between 2 nitro cars, and I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, man, that's where I am every race, like enjoying that. And you know what? It never gets old. Like, it always is amazing. So far, I get back and I'm like, I can't believe we're doing this. And it's just, I think it's underappreciated, honestly, in other forms of motor racing. I think it's underappreciated.
I think you're right. I think you're right on that. I think now maybe Tony Stewart, I would imagine now he appreciates it, but I don't know if he did before he got involved with his own team and stuff like he does now. But you're right. I don't think most people appreciate, even though I'm involved heavily in sprint car racing. I follow drag racing very close, and it's an amazing sport, and their TV coverage is amazing. They got excellent TV coverage, really got good TV coverage. And I don't know, TV, for some reason in TV, to me, it's hard to appreciate it like it is being there. Now, sprint car racing, I think you can appreciate it on TV a little more because it's so much driver involved in a sprint car. I mean, not that it ain't in a drag car, don't get me wrong. But I never thought, with the technology we have today, that the sound effects on TV never come close to what those cars really do sound like. I just don't think they do. A top fuel car standing there and listening to it just even idle is unbelievable, but it just don't quite have that sound on TV to me that it does in person. I just don't think so.
Agreed.
But
no way to duplicate it. There's no way. Well, what about sprint car racing?
Just don't do it. Yeah.
Let's go into that, though, because there's an inner beauty to that as well that only the people that are the true insiders can talk about. I know you've got many track records out there with your engines, and they're on the ragged edge as well. What does it take to be successful, to be fast in sprint car racing?
Well, what it takes in sprint car racing, you do need a good motor, but to me, there's a lot of tracks that you just can't use it, unfortunately. We don't have clutches. We don't have the technology. I've always said, and I think I'm correct, if drag racers ever entered in the sprint car, they would figure better ways to hook these cars up. Because if I look at a sprint car, as far as the chassis and stuff, it's basically no real new technology that I can see. I really don't. And of course, they got tire rules that make it a little more difficult and stuff too. But the half-mile tracks, like I'll give you examples here in our area, Williams Grove, which is very close to my business, Sealands Grove, Port Royal, they're half-mile track. There, you better have some motor. When it comes to qualifying, you better have some motor. And now Lincoln Speedway is right over the hill from my place, so I can walk to Lincoln Speedway just about. Now there's times you can use motor. Anthony Macri on the Monday night won Lincoln Speedway. He won that race. He won Williams Grove Friday night. But qualifying sets the whole format for sprint car racing. If you ain't in the redraw or you're not in the dash, you're in a heap of trouble because it's so equal today. You've got to be in them front couple rows. But it takes a good driver, too. I mean, Kyle Larson, Kyle Larson was in here last night, and he got whipped. He got beat last night. He started on the pole, and Brett Marks started 13th, a local racer, and ran him down and won it. And that's pretty hard to do. But the PA Posse has some good racers. They really do. But I'll guarantee you, when they put Larson on the pole last night, he drew the number one. I thought, boy, he's going to win it. But by God, he didn't. Macri, my guy, the kid that I'm working for a lot, he ran third. Brett Marks got by him. He was going to run second, but he couldn't hold Marks off. But they did beat Kyle Larson last night, and that's very difficult. Very difficult. But you don't just come into Central Pennsylvania and think you're going to win. I can tell you that. But I do have the track records at Port Royal, Williams Grove, and Sealands Grove, and with three different drivers. Brian Brown has the track record at Port Royal. Anthony Macri has it at Sealands Grove. And the Indy race team with Bernie Sturgeon has it at Williams Grove. So I'm pretty proud of that. I don't usually brag, but I am proud of that. I really am, because those records are going to be hard to break. We broke the Williams Grove record about a year ago, and it was like 18 years old. Port Royal, I don't know if they'll ever break that record. I mean, Brian Brown, he doesn't win as many races as he could because he's getting a little older, but he's an excellent qualifier. He's a very some guys are just better qualifiers. Getting back to your original question there, they're just smoother. They're just they can work that wheel and they're just smooth, and yet maybe they're not quite as good and aggressive when it comes to actual racing, but they're just better qualifiers. And Brian Brown is one of them for sure. But on those tracks, you do have to have a motor. I mean, you really do, especially in qualifying, because like I said, if you're running the World Outlaws or any race where there's a dash, if you ain't in that dash, you just ain't going to win. You just can't, because the level of competition is too tough. And it's although last night, Brett Marks, that's probably the furthest I've seen anybody come from 13th and win a race. That's I mean, for a while, he's had an extremely good race car. But, in qualifying, he was horrible because his car wasn't right. And without a good car and a good driver, even a good motor is not going to help you. You need all three. You've got to have all three.
Keith, jump in here with a question for Charlie.
One of the questions was also, you didn't bring up how, Charlie did all the engines for Jason Myers, in all his outlaw championships. And as Charlie said, it's a combination. It's, you got to have the car, you got to have the driver, people that take care of it, and great power. But, question-wise, Charlie, I mean, do you miss going drag racing? We've talked about a lot of things. I know your passion for sprint car, but, would you ever consider doing some drag stuff again?
No, I would not, Keith. I really wouldn't. I wouldn't want to travel. Locally, would I want to drag race locally? I would drive a drag car again, but nothing ridiculously fast. But my traveling days with my family and stuff now, I would never want to travel anymore. I did my share of traveling, and that's one thing I don't miss. I could say with today's world, the traffic and the hassle of getting around, it's just... I would not want to do that part, but I miss drag racing at times. I'll never lose the passion for drag racing. I mean, the technology and the efforts it's put in it. Like I said, a lot of people could never appreciate those cars, how fast they are. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And getting back to one other thing you said was Jason Myers, and I wanted to bring that name up because I was very, very fortunate to ever work for him. And I met him in 03, I guess it was, and when I got to work for him full-time in 09 to 011 and win those World Outlaw Championships. And he's a very good friend of mine today, a very good friend, and very fortunate to ever be able to work with Jason Myers. And he was a good driver. He was just smooth. He didn't tear stuff up. You're not going to win championships by flipping race cars. You've got to finish. If you don't finish, you can't make those points up, and he did not destroy much. He was easy on motors. There's a lot of nights he'd come to me by feature time. He'd say, we got to get rid of some power. We're not going to be able to use it by feature time, and we'd make changes and take some power out, and we'd win races. He was just that good a driver. He knew what that track was capable of holding, where some guys, they won't do that. They just don't understand that come feature time, sometimes you go, well, it ain't no different in drag racing. They got to take power out of times, depending on track conditions, and that's what you got to do,
Very interesting. Now, Charlie, at the end of each episode, we ask for advice for the next generation. I want you to start thinking about that in the back of your mind. I'm going to give Keith an opportunity to ask another question or two, but that's how we land the plane here on Hidden Horsepower. And before we turn it over to Keith, I just want to remind you that, Maple Grove Pro Stock has been added to the schedule this year. It was kind of a mid-season change once the Koretsky family purchased Maple Grove. Of course, Kyle Koretsky races in NHRA Pro Stock, as does Matt Hartford.
Yeah, I know that.
As does Matt Hartford. Yeah. And so Maple Grove this year, we got to get you out there to come hang out and watch a little NHRA Pro Stock this year when we come back to Maple Grove, since the Koretsky family has saved the track. That thing there was no guarantee that was going to stay a drag strip, so they bought it and they saved it, and that is great.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, it was.
Oh, Maple Grove was one of my favorite tracks. We did pretty good at Maple Grove at times. So,
it was dicey for a little while.
Way it's the location of it in the country like that, it's just neat the way it sits there. It's
beautiful. Wow. And they have a lot of plans for it. They're going to make it better, and they're going to do a lot of good stuff with it. And this will be the first year that they are the owners. But no, there were some people that were suggesting that maybe it would not be a racetrack, or maybe it would be houses, or who knows. But the
Koretsky, don't even bring that up. I've seen enough damn houses.
Yeah, I agree with you. But they saved it. So the bottom line is,
I see all this farmland. I live in farmland here, and I see all this farmland disappearing with houses, and it's kind of sickening. It's kind of sickening. It's just But lucky enough around my shop here, it won't happen because these are all Mennonite people, and they won't sell. They will not sell. They're hard-working people, and there's a little guy right in back of my shop running a tractor this morning. I bet that kid ain't over 10 or 12 years old, and he's out there running the tractor. They're taught to work at a very young age, and they're all good kids. They really are.
Wow. Keith, question for Charlie.
Well, like Joe said, we got to get you out to the track. We'll get you the VIP treatment. But now this is completely off the wall and has nothing to do with engines. Last time I was there, that place, Tropical Treat, had just opened up. Just wanted to know if you've been there, Charlie, since the season started.
I'm going there tonight. That place has been in business since '53, Keith. '53, yes, and it's not changed. It's the same. Their food's oh yeah, that's a very popular place, and it's close to my shop. Did you eat there? You say you ate there? Wow.
Last time I was there, it was actually the opening day. The line was huge.
They're only open in summer. They don't open. They're closed.
Yep, it was last time I was there. I stood in that line to get me a burger. For those that don't know, in Hanover, there's a neat old school drive-in Tropical Treat, and if you haven't been there, you got to go because it's really cool.
You can still pull in your car and order right from your car too. You can do it either way. But I told my wife, when I get done with this interview, we're going to a Tropical Treat tonight. It's funny you brought that up. Yeah.
That is awesome. Keith, is there...
It's right up the road here. I used to drive my car around there when I was in high school. That's how damn long that place has been there.
Wow.
That's excellent.
Maybe I'll hit it when we hit Maple Grove if it's not that far away.
Well,
I love places.
You ought to. They got the best ice cream. They got the best. I don't care what you get there. It's good. It never changed. It's always been the same family, and they hand it down through the generations, and it looks the same. It just don't change outside or inside. There's no place to eat inside. You got to sit outside the picnic benches. It ain't no place where you walk in and eat. It's a drive-in. It's an old-school drive-in. Yep, it's hard to believe.
I love it. No, that's right up my alley. I love stuff like that. Keith, final question for Charlie before we let him give the next generation some advice.
Well, with that, Charlie, just what do you see the next? Where do you see the next thing in the sprint car engine or engine development in general? Do you see it more? I mean, obviously we're doing everything we can with the rings to improve ring seal. Do you see a place where there's more, Charlie? Because we're always looking for more. Nobody ever stops. Always more. Every time we go to a show, what do you got? More. What do you got new? Do you see it in manifold or cylinder head or, like you said, maybe more drag race guys getting involved in the sport, bringing that level of innovation? Where do you see the next thing?
Well, obviously, Keith, what I see in most of these motors that I've dynoed that are other people's motors, they don't run good enough up top. They're not efficient enough. They don't have it figured out. Oh, you can make a lot of low-end torque, but they're running these motors today, Keith. They're all running them up there at 8800. I mean, even though they don't, my motors will run good up to 82, 8300, but they're going past that some. But the bottom line is most of the motors I experience with, I looked at in the dyno, they just don't run good enough up top, and mine do. And that comes from a lot of my drag race experience and doing my own head work. And I don't disclose what I do to my head. I don't want anybody to know what I do to my head. You know what, Rear Morrison, I'll never forget this. We were at Indy testing one time in Pro Stock, and David Rear came over to me, and he always seemed to have respect for me because he knew we didn't have a lot of money to work with. But we were testing an oil pan and some things, and David said to me, he said, Charlie, he said, that oil pan, he said, let me give you some advice. Work on the heads and the manifold until you're completely out of ideas. Then if you want to move down to the lower end and work on an oil pan or something, you might find a little something. But he said they used, like Moroso and them used a lot of people's names to say we made 20 horsepower here and there, but you want to concentrate on the heads and the manifold. And he's right. I mean, he's right. I developed a combination of my heads and my manifold that I don't want anybody to, I don't allow my customers to take my motors anywhere. Of course, I won't work for somebody that I don't think I can trust, and I make them sign a release that they are not allowed to take these motors anywhere because you can't share everything you know or you're going to lose your advantage. And really, in sprint car racing right now, unless they change the rules, If they allow us to spread the bore centers, yeah, we can make a lot more power. But right now, with the 2 valves per cylinder, no red cam, aluminum blocks, believe me, it's hard to find much. Believe me, it is. I'm sure we'll always find something, but you're not going to just jump in there and find 30, 40 horsepower for a long time. It's going to come slow. It really is. And it's just, again, go back to the word detail, but I'll never forget David Rear telling me that keep working on those heads and manifold. And he's right. I mean, yeah, just don't get me wrong. There's power to be found on ring drag and things like that. But if you don't got a good set of heads and a manifold, then you got to find the right camshaft and everything to work with it. It ain't going to happen. It just ain't going to happen. And it's not easy. I look at the small block Chevy. When I was young and just getting out of high school, well, I was still in high school when the 55 Chevys came out. But look at that motor. In reality, we're basically working with the same configuration today, and look at the power we're making. To say we would have ever made 900-plus horsepower out of those motors, you never would have dreamed that back then. But in reality, it's basically the same. I mean, yes, it ain't the same block and stuff, but it's the basically same layout. The Chevrolet was so far ahead of their time that no one's ever beat that motor. I don't care if it's a Ford, I don't care if it's a Honda, I don't care what it is. You're going to play hell out running a small block Chevy if you've got an engine builder that knows what to do with it. It's going to be hard to outrun it as long as the rules are where they are. Now, if they favor Toyota or Ford and say, well, you can run a wider bore center than the Chevy, well, no, that wouldn't even be fair. But if they would do that, then you might be at a disadvantage. But we need wider bore centers really to get more room for bigger valves and stuff, because I've tried bigger valves, and a lot of times it'll hurt you. You don't got room for it. Even though we got to move over as far as you can, we don't got big enough bores and stuff for that, And so it's going to be hard to find a lot, but we'll uncover some things, but it'll be a slow process,
All right, Charlie, here we go. I first of all, the whole interview is riddled with advice for our next generation. All they have to do is listen, and hopefully they're loving it as much as I am, and I am. But if you had the opportunity to talk to the young, I know you grew up on a farm and work was never your problem. You always loved to work, and you worked and have respect for work. Maybe something other than that, though. What would you say to the young folks that are getting involved? They're mechanically inclined, they love cars, they've got desire. What advice would you give the next generation to maybe give them a head start or a leg up or an opportunity to be successful in this field?
Well, my advice would be, number one, if they really think this is what they want to do, you got to get involved with the right people. I mean, you got to get involved with people that can give you good advice, and you got to be willing to work and work and work, or it's never going to happen. But get involved with the right people for advice. Obviously, there's certain people I call for advice. Danny Jessel's a fine example. I'm lucky enough to be involved. If I want some advice about rings, I'll be calling Keith. Knowing the right people, getting involved with those people, and being honest about everything you do. Never, ever lie to nobody, because that'll catch up with you. That's getting you nowhere. Be honest and work hard, and have a passion for what you want to do. You got to be sure you got that passion for it. And but the biggest advice I could have is, like, if somebody would call me for advice, am I going to tell them what I'm doing to my cylinder heads? No, but I would certainly give them advice, and I wouldn't lie to them. I've had a few young people that have been in my shop already, and I've taught things, and it's just the only problem is, to try to teach somebody is very time-consuming. It's hard to get your work done when you're in a teaching process, but as far as advice on the phone, my advice to any young person is make sure this is what you want to do. And if you think you really want to do it, then get connected with the right people to guide you down that road, and make sure your parents, if you're a young person, I don't guess your parents have to be on board with it, because my parents weren't on board with me, but I think they look back now, they're dead and gone. But I'm sure if they look down on me, they say, boy, they didn't want me to race, but they have to look down now and say, God, I guess we were wrong, because he built a good business and he loves what he does. Why didn't we want him to race, So your parents don't always know. They can give you advice also, but if I'd have went the route my parents wanted me to do and not race, I don't believe I'd be working today. I probably wouldn't be as happy as I am today, you know. And you got to be happy with what you do. If you're not happy with it, you're not going to be. It's going to be a long, miserable life if you don't like what you do. That's all I can say, you know. But my advice would be, make sure it's what you want to do. Get to know the right people, and you can put me on that list. If you want advice as far as if you want to work on a motor, I'll give you advice, you know. Do I know everything? No, I don't know everything. I don't want to know everything because then you're going to get dumb, you know. If I can learn one thing this week, that's good to me. That's good. But then I get people that want to tell me things that I know I've been down that road, and I get a little stubborn about that because I don't want to use the wrong words here, but I'm going to have to call it bullshit. I don't like it. I don't like people telling me things that I know is wrong. I don't like it. I don't know everything. But if you've done enough in life, you know sometimes when somebody's trying to bull you around something that's wrong, it's just all wrong. And but that's about the only advice I could give. You know, I don't know.
Works for me. No, Charlie, that was good. That's good stuff right there. That you don't have to go too much, and now you've offered for them to call you, so I don't want to spoil it for them. How great was this, Keith? This was amazing, Charlie. I loved just hearing the stories, but also loaded with information and experience. I really appreciate you coming on the show, joining us on Hidden Horsepower.
Well, I thank you, and I thank Keith. Keith and I have been friends for a lot of years, and my God, he just... I can't say enough to be lucky enough to have a vendor that's willing to take care of me, because that's not true with a lot of these vendors. I'm telling you, it's just not. You know what I've really discussed it right now is that the vendors don't want to take care of the customers that they had, yet they keep taking on more work. It's all about money. But let's make sure you take care of the ones that stay with you a lot of years, too. That would be like me not taking care of customers that have been with me for years. I can't do that to people. I just can't.
I wanted to say thank you, Charlie. Again, I appreciate the kind words. And, I think customer service is what builds any good, long-lasting business out there, whether it's yours, whether it's ours. The foundation of any good business is customer service, good customer service. And, if you've got bad customer service, trust, that word's going to get out. It won't take long, and next thing you won't have any customers. So, again, thank you, Charlie. I appreciate the kind words, and I appreciate you coming on the show. We'll just say, should have done it sooner, because, again, loved having you on here.
Well, thank you very much. And
all right.
Joe, thank you.
There he goes, Charlie Garrett with us here on Hidden Horsepower. Keith, that was one of my favorite episodes.
It was awesome. Charlie's great, and we could probably talk for hours and hours. He's got so many stories and so much great knowledge, and it's a genuine honor to work with guys like Charlie.
Amazing. For people out there who want great customer service and they want to learn a little bit about Ring Seal, what should they do?
Well, check us out first at our website, TotalSeal.com. Tons of great information, videos, we'll just say a plethora of knowledge there for you to absorb and learn from. But if you need more, you don't see what you want, reach out to us. My email, KeithJ@TotalSeal.com. All the rest of the guys are also on the website. Call us, 800-874-2753. We've got people here ready to take your call at any time, and glad to answer your questions.
He's Keith Jones, the Director of Technical Sale for Total Seal Piston Rings. My name is Joe Castello. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, WFO Joe. And I also do a podcast called WFO Radio, where we talk NHRA, drag racing, and a whole bunch of stuff associated with going fast cars. And we'll have more episodes of Hidden Horsepower coming soon. This was a great one. Remember, rate and review. Subscribe, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud. We appreciate you, and that's going to do it. We'll see you next time on the next episode of Hidden Horsepower, presented by Total Seal.